Hello, welcome to News at 10 on TV3 and 3FM 92.7. We're broadcasting from the News Hub at Adesawe, Kanda, in Accra. And around the world, we're streaming live on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. Let me take you through today's news highlights. About 72 different medicines imported into the country between 2010 and 2013 were unregistered. Acting Chief Executive of the Food and Drugs Authority, who appeared before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, said medicines that were detained because their owners had not registered them got missing but found their way back onto the market. The National Council for Tertiary Education has called on public institutions to maintain the 2016-2017 academic year levels of fees and charges while parliamentary approval is sought for any adjustments for this academic year. The Council therefore urged all stakeholders, including management of public institutions, prospective and continuing students and the public, to take note and comply with the directive. The Inspector General of Police, David Asante Pietu, has tasked personnel in the Public Affairs Department to develop innovative ways to get the public to understand and appreciate the service. The IGP threw the challenge at the opening of a capacity building workshop here in Accra. And Senior Minister Yao Safo Mafo is making a strong case for public officials who mismanage the economy to be punished. Speaking at the 2017 Ghana Economic Forum, he noted the fiscal responsibility law would promote accountability and engender the country's development. The Greater Accra Regional Directorate has confirmed hospitals have taken delivery of polio vaccines after the country was hit by shortage. There was a month-long shortage of the vaccines, putting the lives of children at risk of contracting polio, causing discomfort among nursing mothers. And Kenyans will on Tuesday go to the polls in a tightly fought presidential elections as President Uhuru Kenyatta faces veteran opposition challenger Raila Odinga amid fears of violence. Opinion polls before Tuesday's vote put the opposition leader Odinga 72, who lost elections in 2007 and 2013, and President Kenyatta 55, neck and neck. Voter turnout will be key in an election that many fear could descend into violence. Those are our major news highlights. Up next is the big one. Welcome. We'll take the echo before the big one. The Inspector General of Police, David Asante Appiato, has set a 2020 target to make the country's police service the best in Africa. Speaking at the opening ceremony of a training workshop for public affairs officers, the IGP added that the police service should rank within the first 20 police forces in the world.
It is trite knowledge that the Ghana Police Service is affected by global changes and cannot remain static. As a result, the service under my leadership is pursuing a robust transformation aimed at actualizing the vision of the service, and that is to become a world-class police service capable of delivering planned, democratic, protective, and peaceful service up to the standards of international best practice. In doing this, it is our goal to position the Ghana Police Service as one of the best 10 police services in the world and the leading one in Africa by 2020. It is against this backdrop that my administration recognizes the strategic role of the Public Affairs Department as the department assigned to ensure that a better window of communication is open to the public.
This is actually the big one. Let's do some conversation. Let's have some conversation on this. David Agbe, Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security, is in the studio with me. David, how are you? Good evening. Yes, nice to see you. How is Kumasi and everybody? Yeah, we're going to talk IGP and his ambition to make the police service one of the best. But we'll also go on Skype. Sani Adib. Mr. Adib, good evening. We're grateful that you could also join. How are you, sir?
Very well, sir. Thank you.
Great. So, as you're on Skype, let me start with you. The vision by the IGP to make the Ghana Police Service one of the best, leading police forces, among the best 20 in the world. Is this a realistic vision?
It is a realistic vision. However, there are some protocols and mechanisms that would have to be put on the ground to, as it were, realized it. I know the intrinsic value of the police in consolidating and entrenching our democracy. Indeed, that cannot be bastardized. But unfortunately, the police has been in the news for all the wrong reasons in recent years. First of all, I think there are 1,000 ways we can realize this, but I'll just mention a few. We have to first of all understand the police subculture. We have to understand their menacing concerns. We have to understand what would make a good cop go bad. I think that can be started with the recruitment process. We've had a recruitment process that is usually riddled in corruption and unqualified people put there. In the long run, we have them taken out when they perhaps have had some level of training and an insider information about the police force. I think, first of all, we have to, as it were, to an appreciable level, knowing full well that it is a human institution and you cannot have things go our way 100%. Also, psychologically, I have had discussions at the personal level with some police friends. The last time I asked a high-ranking police officer whether they have psychological services they provide the police, because I'm sure on daily basis they are privy to experiences that has a psychological toll on them. Some also have personal issues, like we had the case of Corporal Amuzu in Tema killing his mother-in-law and his children because of some personal issues he had with his wife. I sought to find out whether they have psychological guidance and counseling, services within the police hierarchy. He said, yes, they do, but it has not been effective in recent years.
Right.
Also, I think to a very large extent, we have to rid the police of the corruption Okay, and one of those ways we can do is not just disciplining officers that go wrong, but to follow the discipline with education. People will have to be constantly reminded on the job about the do's and don'ts on the service, in the service, even though they might have had all of these training at the training stage. So
Right.
all of these, when we harness it, I think to a very large extent, even if we are not able to achieve the realistic targets, we would, to a very large extent, get something near that.
Right, Sani Adib, thank you very much for joining us on Skype. We're grateful for time. We'll hold you briefly and then I'll get back to you. So, David, you heard Sani agreeing that this is achievable. The Ghana Police Service can be one of the best in the world. And but I don't know whether you agree with him, but I feel that a lot more things need to be put in place before this kind of vision can be achieved. Do you think so too?
Steve, I must say that this target is not realistic at all. I mean, from security point of view, from management point of view, from leadership point of view, from organizational structure of the police service that we have.
Is this to suggest that the base is too rotten to be resuscitated?
It is not too rotten. It's not too rotten. I mean, when you looked at the rankings, you know, the big powers, those countries which have gone very, very far, you know, as compared to our African continent, which most at times we call it the peripheral countries, where we have so many, you know, difficulties that all the time they have to support us before we can really retool our security services. It is not only the manpower. Okay. The manpower skills, we do have it. I mean, if you read through our peacekeeping operations where we used to measure the performances of our security service internationally, you realize that we are performing creditably. I mean, all over. They used to say that our men are very, you know, professional, but we need to retool our security services. We need to really empower them. Skills-wise, we need to train them for them to come to the speed of current system of policing and security and be able to understand the current system, the emerging threat to our national security and the African sub-region before we can transit to the rest of the world.
They need to know how to deal with human rights issues.
My namesake, Mr. David Apietu, I must say that he's quite an ambitious person. When you read his profile, you will love him, you will like him. But like this one, I must say that from all angles, I disagree with his position. But then it is good that he's taxing his men. You know, that is how it is. In leadership, you need to be able to carry your people along. And in leadership, we used to say that a leader who does not have followers is just like you are working within your own confines. And so he needs to challenge his people so that they can rally behind him all the time. And so it's a good one. But then the task ahead of him is quite big.
Let's move to Sani Adib. Mr. Adib, so let me not focus so much on the police and whether their vision is achievable. Of course, there are a lot more things that need to be done within the police service to bring it up to speed with international best practices. We have record performance from our peacekeeping force and all of that. So we have no doubt that our police institution and structure is one of the most efficient in the world. But we need to let that trickle down to the base. Let me move away from the police and talk about the joint military and police task force that was formed to fight Galamsey. We are hearing that some clashes with some illegal miners led to the death of one person. So far, what would you make of the performance of the Vanguard, the Operation Vanguard team?
Well, indeed, I have been very categorical about the fact that the issue of Galamsey is so deep-seated, is so entrenched in our society. And when you're dealing with an entrenched issue in society, that has almost become a culture. By hook or crook means people would want to, as it were, resist. That is why I, in the first place, welcomed the operation. But I didn't mince words in pointing out the fact that, look, when you get to the ground, you cannot do this alone. You would need the people to take part in that process. Right. And that can only happen if you harness your relationship with the people based on mutual trust and respect and friendship. By so doing, you would have the people cooperating with you and sharing critical intelligence or information with you that would make your job much more easier. And this can be arrived at when we recognize and respect the necessary human rights protocols enshrined in our statutes, human rights protocols we are signatory to at the international level, and to a very large extent, that would harness that relationship.
Right, so, we're grateful for a time. We're grateful for your time this evening. Sani Adib is a security analyst. We're grateful. Thank you very much. Mr. David, let's wrap up with you. I know that this Galamsey issue is ongoing. There are lots that have to be put in place. It's not the first time we have an anti-Galamsey task force. What are your expectations of the group? Very shortly.
I am expecting that our military men will do the good job that I do know that they always exhibit. And so they are within my territory. You know, Obuasi is an area that I do know very well. And not Obuasi alone, the whole of Ashanti region is just like my laboratory. So I must say that the military are in for a good task. Let's all encourage them to do what the whole country has actually tasked them to do. But you know, as they started, so far we have been told that almost about 108, people have so far been arrested. And the sad incident is that Obuasi, somebody has been killed. And it is not something that the military, would like to, kill somebody in the course of their activity. Right. Exigency of time, in leadership theories, we used to say, the contingency theory. The situation demands a certain level of action that needs to be taken. And this one, because the people were throwing stones here and there, that is why they also reacted in that way. But we are sorry that this thing has happened. But what I would try to say to my constituents, or Obuasi and its environment, is that they should obey the instruction from the military so that nobody is actually being harmed. Yes.
Right. David, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. David Agbe is the Executive Director of the Institute of... Right, let's move away from that. Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. I'm going blank now. The National Council for Tertiary Education has called on management of public institutions to maintain the 2016-2017 academic year levels of fees and charges. The council said it is working on getting parliamentary approval for any adjustments for this academic year.
A statement issued by the council and signed by the executive secretary, Professor Mohamed Salifu, said the proposed fees and charges for the 2017-2018 academic year have been collated for consideration and approval by Parliament. This is in accordance with the requirements of the Fees and Charges Act 2009, Act 793 and Amendment Instrument 2016 LI 2228. The statement added that following the decision of Parliament on the proposals, some adjustment may have to be made to the 2016-2017 levels to reflect the approved levels for implementation. The Council therefore urged all stakeholders, including the management of public institutions, prospective and continuing students, and the public to take note and comply with the directive. The chairman of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament, Mahama Yarga, had earlier threatened legal action should the due process of law not be followed in getting the 2017-2018 fees and charges approved by Parliament.
The Communications Director of the National Road Safety Commission, Kwame Kodua Echiahene, has denied media reports that the Commission is in a meeting with the Road Ministry and has agreed to suspend the toll levy. According to him, the Transport Ministry is still engaging stakeholders and the report will be made public on the final decision.
The toll levy has received a huge public outcry, with many calling for its suspension in its current form. Some reports even suggest the Transport Ministry and the National Road Safety Commission have heeded to such calls. But Head of Communications at the National Road Safety Commission has denied the reports indicating a wider consultation is being carried out.
It is also important that we express disagreement with a certain measure of decency. I mean, when there is no basis to put out a story of this nature, you don't do that. For what? What mischief are you trying to cure or create? The minister says that, I mean, Parliamentary Select Committee is just one of several consultations that he's embarking on. a clear statement was put out on Friday. And out of nowhere, you create an impression that some decisions have been taken. I mean, it doesn't help anyone.
In its current form, an annual levy of between 20 cedis to 200 cedis will be imposed on vehicle owners annually.
And leadership of the ruling New Patriotic Party in Biakoya district have kicked against the proposed nomination of Christy Nutako as the district chief executive. The party claims the lady being speculated as the president's next nominee is a known NDC member and can therefore not serve their interests.
The Biakoya District Assembly 2 weeks ago rejected the president's nominee, Millicent Kabuki Kabu. The development leaves the president with no option than to nominate another person for consideration by the District Assembly. Even as the presidency continues to search for the best candidate, word went wild among the rank and file of the party in the district about the possible nomination of the presiding member, Christy Nutako. The rumor caused anger and agitation among the party members who described Christy as an NDC member. The aggrieved MPP members on Monday organized a media briefing to vent their anger. Spokesperson for the group and an executive member of the party, Bryce Donko, describes the development as a stab in the back.
Does it mean that the party in the constituency lacks qualified persons, that they have to fall on a known NDC woman? Or is the president so desperate for a female to be the DC that he is ready to sell the party to our opponent?
The group vowed to defect from the party if their concerns are not addressed to their satisfaction.
The party in the constituency will never be the same again if it turns out that an NDC woman is to become the leader of the NPP in the Biakoya.
They insisted the party deserves better than what is being forced down them.
Now, Kenyans will on Tuesday go to the polls in a tightly fought presidential election as President Uhuru Kenyatta faces veteran opposition challenger Raila Odinga amid fears of violence. My colleague Alfred Okanse spoken on News 360 with a freelance journalist in Kenya, Emmanuel Yegon, who is currently in the Charangani constituency in the Rift Valley.
I wouldn't also refute the claims that there are people who've been running away from the capital, and for sure some people have been have been traveling. I mean, in season of fear of the outcome of the elections. But that is just some of the things that the leaders have been asking people not to leave Nairobi. If they are registered voters in Nairobi, they should participate in the process because security has been beefed up in every region.
Now, but I mean, this election in 2007 that led to the death of a little over 1,200 people was 10 years ago. Now, you had an election again in 2013. There was less violence. What has underscored the violence or the fear of violence that these people have, which has warranted them leaving the capital?
A lot of people, including even political analysts, have been talking about, you know, we as a country, we need to end the narrative that when we are having an incumbent defending the seat, then the country is prone to go to violence. That is something that everyone is trying to move out from.
There's a lot of young people going in to vote. Speaking to them, have their expectations or their needs been met with the kind of message that these two persons amongst the 8 have served them?
We had a lot of promises of job creation and, you know, the whole issue of ending unemployment being part of the narrative. But as it has always been, you know, these people, after their 5 years, they also come back again during campaigns to tell us about how they are going to end unemployment.
And that's how we draw the curtain for News at 10. Thank you for making time to be with us. For those of you who tuned in to 3FM 92.7, thank you very much for leaving your dial there. On behalf of the crew here, good night, and please enjoy the rest of our programs.